Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending on where in the world you are joining me from. Me, I'm Illuminati. This is the Crypto and Cognac podcast show, as always, live every Thursday, 7 p.m. sharp Atlantic Standard Time, right here on YouTube. And this is season 7, episode 6. And today we are talking about whether or not the government of Trinidad and Tobago has just closed the country off from crypto business. It is on everybody's lips, from Ian Allen to Alan Ian or whoever else. The amount of people who have sent me some version of an article, of a news report, of something as it relates to the virtual assets and virtual asset service providers bill. Ah, it's been a lot. So clearly, you guys want to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it. As always, if I'm here, any day, right? You all know how we do it in the Caribbean. We do lime, we do have conversations, dry mouth. So pour yourself a drink and let's chop it up. Cheers. I am guessing that today or for this episode, we're going to have a few newbies who tuning in for the first time, who have never come across the Crypto and Cognac podcast show before. So, more important than any other evening, housekeeping. Me, I am not a financial advisor. This is not a financial advisory podcast. Nothing that I share here this evening, last evening, or any evening to come should be misconstrued as financial advice. The same way we drink our Hennessy is the same way we keep our crypto talk on the rocks, right? So that means the ICE rule: information, conversation, a little bit of education. What that means is I share with you, you share with me, and hopefully on the other side of that, we all a little bit more knowledgeable about the topics, right? Stevie's here. I shall. If Henny here, I here, Stevie here. Shout out to Afia, shout out to Anil, shout out to Ann, Taylor. Stephen, you do the work in the comments there, right? So guys, the virtual assets and virtual asset service provider bill. Now, in my years in the corporate world, I've learned that the best way to go about doing things is to first congratulate and then criticize, right? So I'm going to start off by saying that the initial version of this bill that I saw, it was heinous. It was downright diabolical. The amount of nonsense, the lack of consideration, the lack of communication, the lack of consultancy, the lack of consultation that took place. But give Jack his jacket. The government has listened to the feedback from people in the industry, and the more updated version of the bill that I had the opportunity to get my hands on, it is way more progressive. It is way more considerate. It is way more practical. And while it wasn't able to be debated in the parliament based on when those amendments were submitted to the parliament, I think I'm a lot more comfortable with this version of the bill, which I believe is going to be passed ultimately, right? And that is the version that I want to talk about this afternoon. That is the version I want to give you guys some information about, because like I said, I've been seeing a lot of things going around the social media environment that misrepresents the situation. There are a lot of people very excited, right? Because they didn't get in early enough or whatever, and they hating on everybody else who got involved. There are a lot of people who own a little $2 in crypto who are panicking. They don't know what to do with it. Like I said, this is not about financial advice, but even after we share here this afternoon, if you're still feeling very uncomfortable about continuing to hold your virtual assets, there are some wallet addresses in the caption. Please feel free to make a donation, a charitable gift to the Crypto and Cognac podcast. Right? So guys, what does the bill actually intend to do? What is the goal? What is the big plan behind it? Right now, we know that behind the scenes, that have some certain things that happening. Right, FATF audit is coming in March 2026, and the government is even more incentivized to get this thing passed so that they could be compliant with some of those regulations or requirements, so that we don't get cut off from intermediary banking systems and all this kind of thing. Right? But what does the bill actually intend to do? It intends to identify and regulate who can operate crypto businesses, what activities require authorization, and ultimately how individuals and companies must report, advertise, store data, and comply with the newly introduced AML rules around virtual assets. Again, a big driver for having this done now and with the urgency is coming in line with the FATF requirements. Now, a lot of people have introduced some version of regulations meant to treat with coming into line with FATF, but not everybody has gone as far as the Trinidad and Tobago government. Now, what we've been hearing is crypto is going to be banned until December 2027. That's what we've been hearing. That's not the facts. The facts is that there will be a temporary ban on new crypto businesses until the 31st of December 2027, right? That is one of the clauses that has the most significant impact, right? The TTSEC, who is the regulatory body who will be responsible for regulating the virtual asset space, they will not be able to authorize the operations of any new VASP between now and December 31st, 2027. So that means no new crypto exchanges, no new wallet providers, no new crypto-related finance services available to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago based in Trinidad and Tobago. One of the key updates is that they have introduced a strict but temporary regulatory sandbox, right? So for those businesses that are currently operating legitimately in Trinidad and Tobago who have been going through that process of doing things the right way and want to continue to operate, we don't want to scare them off. We don't want to send them overseas. So what has been introduced, or what is being recommended and will be introduced once the bill is passed and enacted into law, is that they will be able to participate in this regulatory sandbox. What is the impact to everyday crypto users? This is what everybody is worried about. This is what everybody is panicking about, right? So the act allows, or the bill allows, for the continued personal use of crypto and cryptocurrencies. But with everything, limits, right? Remember limits. Remember, don't drink, drive, or degen irresponsibly. So what does that mean? Limits. You can hold your crypto personally. You can do peer-to-peer trading. And you can utilize the services of self-custody wallets, right? They haven't specifically addressed using exchanges that operate outside of Trinidad and Tobago. I think that might be addressed. But for now, you are free to hold your own crypto, trade your crypto in terms of peer-to-peer, and obviously to operate self-custody wallets. I think one of the biggest issues that they were afraid of is people using custodial wallet services based in Trinidad and Tobago, and that impacting the security of the whole environment, right? as it relates to business-based crypto activity, that must stop within 3 months. So they've given persons 3 months to either notify the TTSEC. So all existing providers, who, whether they are exchanges, transfer services, wallet providers, they must notify the TTSEC within 1 month, and they need to cease activity within 3 months unless they have been accepted into that regulatory sandbox that we talked about a little while ago, right? So you basically have two options: comply or get out, right? Which sounds tough, but like I said, in the first iteration of this bill, it was just stop, cold turkey, get out. It don't matter whether you're trying to do things the right way, the wrong way, or otherwise, right? So I think this is a huge opportunity for those people who have been serious and been playing the game the right way to continue to operate and to be given the infrastructure to support that development, because sandboxes are supposed to be environments of growth, environments of support, so that these guys can eventually get things done the right way. Now, failure to either get accepted into the sandbox or to exit your business operations can result in a $5 million fine and imprisonment of the individuals associated, and particularly the officers of the company, right? So if you're operating a business, please, my brother, notify. Once the law becomes a law, right? Once the bill becomes a law, notify the TTSEC, seek out the proper channels to get accepted into the regulatory sandbox. Do not wait until the last moment and then say, well, you didn't get through, blah, blah, blah. The next thing, advertising of crypto businesses, advertising of crypto activities, advertising of crypto services is now illegal without authorization, right? So no person can advertise crypto services or trading opportunities unless authorized by the TTSEC. I might have to ask a question, but I do advertise nothing, right? I'm not selling all in nothing. I'm not telling all in nothing, right? Except what I doing, right? So people must stop promoting crypto platforms, right? Me don't tell you what to use. Stop advertising exchanges, exchanges who want to operate in Trinidad and Tobago, who want Trinidad and Tobago citizens as customers can no longer advertise within the territory for those customers. And of course, nobody coming on the TikToks, the social media, and saying, get started in crypto. I'm going to show you how. Yeah, all of that, the days for that, done. Now, one of the additional things is that in line with the FATF regulations, expect more significant AML, CFT, and CPF regulations around cryptocurrency, right? Because crypto is now going to have to fall in line with the traditional bankings and the traditional financial system as it relates to AML, anti-money laundering, terrorism financing, and all this kind of thing, right? So wallets are now going to be defined in AML terms. So if you are using a custodial wallet, if you are a provider of a custodial wallet, there will be AML requirements that apply. So, for example, they require the understanding of who the full originator and the beneficiary of those crypto tokens are, right? Same as with your bank. The only thing that has been a little bit more stringent is that now any deposit of crypto in excess of 6,000, I think 6,000 TT, triggers those AML requirements. So we know that in the traditional system, cash over 10,000 requires those source of fund declarations. It seems that will be 6,000 TT for crypto in these custodial situations. Now, for someone to get involved in the regulatory sandbox, you must have been operating before the act, right? So if you have an idea, if you have a plan, if you have a business that you want to start now, right? Before the act gets proclaimed, right? That might be the only cheat code. But for those who've been operating, you continue to operate as usual. You must apply, like I said, within 1 month. Actually, I think the specific details is that you must apply within 30 days. You must have a physical presence or a data server in Trinidad and Tobago. So if you want to operate here, you must have at least an office or a data server in Trinidad and Tobago. I guess that is how the government is going to ensure that they are able to deliver in terms of the regulatory functions that they have. You must comply with AML and CTF rules, and you must be incorporated in Trinidad and Tobago. So if you have a business that is incorporated outside of Trinidad and Tobago, you will have to go and get it registered in Trinidad and Tobago as well. Now, in the sandbox, obviously, there will be certain frameworks within which they can operate. There will be transaction limits. Of course, there must be customer number limits. They want to make sure that you do it too big, strict data reporting, and severe penalties for breaches. Of course, they're going to be watching you like a hawk. So those are some of the things that we can expect. So in the short term, it feels like the bill is putting a significant damper or putting the brakes on the industry. But it just means that startups cannot be launched until 2027. So take your time, plan it in correctly at 2 years to make sure that everything is aligned, and hopefully in 2027, or rather 2028, January 21st, 2028, you could get involved. Existing firms must pass heavy compliance hurdles. Hopefully they don't make those too significant, understanding that these are startups. They don't have the type of capital backing that banks, insurance companies, credit unions, some of the other organizations that are currently regulated by the CBTT and the TTSEC have. So hopefully they make that a little bit not so much of a nuisance for people who want to operate legitimately to be able to do so. Obviously, there are advertising restrictions and then the harsh penalties for those entrepreneurs. So will entrepreneurs still take the risk necessary to operate in Trinidad? Are we going to see an exodus of those brilliant young minds who want to do business in the blockchain and crypto space? I don't know. They haven't really spoken to, I didn't see anything as it relates to like, you know, small creatives who like utilize NFTs for art and that kind of thing. So I guess I'll have to do a deeper dive into the bill and see how those people are impacted. In the medium term, I think it's going to reduce scams. Unfortunately, the reality is that the crypto space does have a lot of scams, breeds a lot of scams, because scammers look for people who are uninformed, uneducated, and at times desperate, right? So whether it's DSS or some crypto related scam, they take advantage of people who are not in the know. I think ultimately it will enable a future that we will see some institutional participation in the crypto space locally, and we may see a little bit more legitimization of those people who are able to get over those hurdles. And I think people are going to become a lot more comfortable to utilize those services. In the long run, I think we're going to see, or I hope that we see Trinidad become one of those environments where you can operate in a regulatory clear environment where you could license an exchange, you could become a licensed custodian, and you could operate your crypto business pretty in line with what is on paper, right? Obviously, we are seeing across the world, a lot of people are putting things in place. The US, most notably, is making the regulatory environment a lot clearer as it relates to crypto. And I think long term, those things can only benefit the space. In the Bahamas, we know they are one of the more regulatory friendly environments for crypto. Barbados, they have the dollar bill. They have been, which is considered to be pretty progressive. Jamaica, they have been cautious. They continue to go down the road of CBDCs rather than the traditional crypto. United States, like I said, they seem to have turned the page in terms of regulatory acceptance of crypto. Obviously, that has a lot to do with President Trump's support for blockchain and crypto, his family's involvement in blockchain and crypto. In the European Union, we have the MiCA regulation, which a lot of people across the world consider to be the gold standard. Now, as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago, we have taken, in the short term, a little bit more restrictive position. Maybe because we don't know, and because we don't know, we just decide we're going to pump our brakes on that. But again, I think the most important thing right now for individuals, you can still hold, buy, sell crypto personally. You can still do your peer-to-peer transactions. If you want to participate with one of those registered businesses, you're going to have to expect KYC, AML, and all those various things that we are very familiar with in the traditional financial space. And of course, advertising of crypto is now going to be illegal, right? On the business side, we see that you can't operate any new operations between December 31st and 2025 and December 31st, 2027. So 2 years. If you're not in the sandbox, please shut it down, right? Of course, heavy AML reporting is to be expected. But overall, I think, like I started with, I think overall it is a positive step. It could be worse, right? And it might still be worse. This might be a bump to some, but we might have real bumps coming. So, like I said, not financial advice, but if you are still, after listening to this, after the bill is passed, if you are still uncomfortable holding your crypto, I could find a home for your lost crypto, right? For your orphaned crypto, I could find a home for it, right? I am willing to bear the burden of this new regulatory environment on your behalf. Not on your behalf, but with your crypto, because I'm not allowed to do anything on your behalf. So, guys, if this made sense to you, if this cleared up some stuff for you, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And that's it for me. I see you all been chopping it up in the chat. Stephen waiting on PwC report. But yeah, guys, that's it for me. As always, thank you for joining me. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. I appreciate that. Illuminati, OUT, out. See you guys next week, Thursday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Be safe.